Good. Yesterday we began a beautiful Hasidic discourse translated into an essay, converted into an essay, which was the words of the first Rebbe of Chabad. The first Rebbe of Chabad, his name was Rabbi Shneur Zalman. Oh, Shalom Paul. Let's go back to just the beginning so that we can have a look at it. This is in a book which is called Torah Or. And the name of this mimer is Lo Tihiyeh Mashakela Ba'akara Ba'artzecha at Mispar Yamecha Amalei. This is a sentence which appears near the end of this week's Torah reading, which is called Mishpatim. And after he gives all these laws, a lot of laws of damages and monetary laws. So it says that if you do all these laws, you're going to come to the land of Israel. You're going to do all these laws. It's really going to be good, and you'll get benefit. God said, "I'll bless you." Velotia meshakela, and there will not be any meshakela or akara. Meshakela, like we said before, means a woman that, God forbid, she gives birth and her children die young. That's a meshakela. As Rivka said, "Im shakalti shakalti." If I die, if my children die, so they died, I'll be shakul. A person is shakul means that he had children and they died. They were killed in war, whatever. That's a meshakela. And akara means a woman that doesn't give birth at all. There won't be ba'artzecha in your land. Your land means in the land of Israel. At mispar yamecha amalei, and you'll live a full life. The number of your days will be full. Not only will they be full in temporal sense, in other words, you'll live a long life, 120 years, but your days, each day will be full with meaning, with good, with productivity, joy, health. Simple meaning. But as we know, the Torah was given not just as an instruction book, like an instruction book for a machine, because human beings are not machines, and human beings are not plants. You know, like you buy a package of seeds, there's instructions on the back when to plant it and when to this and how to water it and what's. And human beings are not animals. That animals, you have to know how to take care of them. You have to know what their nature is, and this is. Human beings are very, I say, versatile and complicated creations. And the main aspect of a human being is they have free will. And they have free will to the point where they can decide not to be selfish if they want to, which that's a big novelty. An animal can't decide not to be selfish. An animal has to go according to its nature. There's some animals you can train to be loyal to the head of the pack or the whatever it is, to their owners. But humans can go against their nature. They can follow principles and go against their nature. And even more, they can go against they can arouse a new nature. They can arouse a new nature. So that's what this is talking about. The job of every human being is supposed to be to connect to the Creator. God is creating everybody. That, by the way, is why God is male. This, by the way, is the answer, I think, the solution, the antidote to this insanity which is going on now with sex change and gender change and all this stuff, which there's a pretty firm basis in this gender change and sex change, and that is that why not? Why not? Why not? That's the basis. The basis is why not? Who says there's a difference between a man and a woman? Who says? If I say there's not, so there's not. Is there anything absolute? That's the whole thing. Is there really anything absolute? Is there absolute truth? Is there absolute identity? Is there absolute, right? And those opposing say, if I want to be a giraffe, can I be a giraffe? Says, but nobody wants to be a giraffe. But people do want to be, a man wants to be a woman, wants to be a man. And there's people that do want to be giraffes. Who knows? I don't know why. But people for sure want to be animals. That's no doubt about it. People want to be animals, and they succeed in being animals. They act like animals. They talk like animals. And so so the answer is there anything really absolute? So he says, yes, God is absolute. God is giving everything. That giving aspect, that's called the male aspect. The receiving aspect, that's called feminine. Receiver. A woman, she receives the seed, she receives this. The child grows inside of her. That's why it's called Mother Earth. And man is the giving aspect. Okay, so the same thing is with us. We can't, there's more than that that's absolute. There's more than that that's absolute. God is absolutely the creator. That's the male aspect. God is creating us all the time. He's giving. He's giving. He's creating us all the time. And that's supposed to be the job of all mankind, is to connect to the creator. Now, interesting thing happens when you connect to your creator. It's a very emotional experience, because your creator is not just like, Donald Duck is creating, is being created by Walt Disney or something. Donald Duck is not a human being, so he hasn't got any feeling of appreciation. But we are human beings, and that same feeling that these woke people have, whatever, that they say that I can decide and I am, so they have a value for themselves. They get all excited if you go against them. So they do have emotions, definitely. So when a person feels that he has a creator, and the creator is more real than we are, and in fact, our whole being depends on the creator, then you have love of the creator. The only problem is this is totally opposite any logic or human senses or feelings or intuitions or whatever, that we have a creator that's creating you. I don't see any creator. What are you talking about? If you don't believe in God that's creating you, you're still being created. God's still creating the whole world, right? Trees believe in God. The rocks believe in God. Everything's being created by God. God is creating, and why? Why would he do such a thing? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Where is he? Where is he being created? So the answer is that in fact it's true. And that's the whole point of the Bible. The Torah is telling us that we are creations, and that we are very lucky, and we should be very grateful that we're being created. And God creates us, and he wants us to have free will, and he wants us to choose. And he wants us to choose to connect to him. And when we do, so that gives birth to love and to fear. Love and fear. Love because we appreciate God so much. Fear because we don't want to lose that connection, that appreciation. So that's what the Rebbe has been talking about up to now, that we have to give birth. And where do we give birth? From Artsecha, from our land. Rebbe's going to talk about this in a moment. That the fact that you have love and fear, the fact that you have anything, the fact that you have teeth or you have toes, that is all a gift from God. It's all gifts from God. And a person might be willing to say, okay, so good, I see that there's some people, they lose their sight. So we see having sight is a big gift from God. But my free choice, that's mine. That's me. And when I love something, that's the real me, right? I really feel a person loves to eat fish or something, and he eats fish and he really enjoys it. Or these people that take drugs or whatever, they really enjoy it. A basketball game or something, people really enjoy that enjoyment. That's me, right? So I say, yeah, but the fact is that that's like sort of the lower you. There's much higher levels of you, of me, levels of appreciation. There's some people that appreciate art, music, mathematics, philosophy, ideas. What they call in English altruism, that you to give yourself over to an idea, to something greater than you. Some people like religion. They get a pleasure out of it. They go to the big prayer meetings and this. They have a big mosque or church or synagogue or whatever they have, Lavdil, and they enjoy it. They enjoy being a part of something bigger than them. Well, says the Rebbe, the fact is the biggest thing that we can be part of is your creator that's creating you. And he cares about you and he loves you. But to feel this is very difficult. So in order to feel this, you have to think. You have to think, and you have to give a lot of, how do you say, deep thought to this idea. Deep thought. Which is an unusual thing. People are not used to thinking deeply about things. 1 second. So there's all you can look at. You can see all these seminars that are on, how to make money, how to be successful, and how to be a good whatever it is, lose weight. How to this? You have to think differently. You have to act differently. You have to be differently. People, how do you stop being addicted to X to Y? You have to have a helper. You have to have a coacher. You have to have this, because people get trapped in their natures, or they just get trapped in ignorance. They just don't know what to do. They don't know how to do things. There used to be one time what was a war? A war used to have two sides, and each one, whoever was stronger, whoever had bigger, whatever muscles, or whatever, they could shoot the arrows further or something. And then they started developing these ideas of tactics, war tactics. And then you have secret weapons, and you have spies, and you have all these tricky things in order to make a war. It's basically the same thing over here. We are making a war, but the war is against ourselves, so to speak. Our own ignorance, our own selfishness, our own egotism, false egotism. Our lusts and our angers and our this, and that keeps us down. It keeps us trapped in the past. It keeps us trapped in ourselves. Okay, so a person thinks about God, and this is avodah gadol. This is a very, very difficult service. That's called serving God. What does it mean, serving God? To change your nature and to use the world and to use your personality and your mind and your heart for what God intended it to be. God intended you to use your mind and your heart to be aware of Him and to act accordingly. And when you do act accordingly, then that activates you. As we said so many times before, the example of people who have done this and are really connected to God is King David, Moses. These people, they almost never slept. And they were as active and as dynamic as God in a way. I mean, God is creating the whole world, so you can't be that active, but as active and as alive as one could possibly be. King David, and they had a lot of enemies and difficulties and etc. And nevertheless, that's what the Torah tells us about a person that's really starts to realize he's got a creator, and the creator is creating him for a purpose. So you become activated. This activation is expressed in basically two things: love and fear. Love and fear. Right? You activate your car, you turn on your car. As soon as you start driving, there's automatically love and fear. You ever notice? You ever drive on a road? You ever go into one place to another? You drive on a bus or something like that? Everyone drives on the proper side of the street. You don't see anyone go over that little line, right, and go on the other side of the street. Doesn't happen unless you're in China. You ever go to China? I went to China. I was in China. They drive cars like that, like you drive bicycles. They just, I guess maybe they didn't have cars very long, so they used to driving bicycles. But people, they want to turn left, so they go into the left side of the road like 2 blocks before, and they dodge other cars. The thing is crazy. Maybe now it's changed anyway. But every place except for that. So people drive on the right, proper side of the road. In England, you drive on the left. In America, you drive on the right. But still, why? Why doesn't everybody just drive wherever they want to? Because it's fear. It's a good, healthy fear that people drive on the proper side of the road, and you don't go over that line. You just don't do it. Once in a while, you get a nut that does, right? But doesn't. On the other hand, why are you getting in the car? Because you want to go somewhere. That's called love. You have positive and negative. That's automatic. The same thing should be with God. Love means appreciation of God. You want to come closer. Fear means that you don't want to lose that closer. You don't want to go against what God wants. Love and fear. But the problem is we're talking about God, your creator, and people don't feel this. I don't feel it. Who feels it? The Rebbe says you have to feel it. Once in a while when you pray, if you really start to think about God, then you start to have love. That's the motto of Judaism. The motto of Judaism is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Shema means to understand. And right after that, the next sentence says, and you will love God with all of your heart, all of your... When you properly have a proper idea about what God is, and you really have to think about it, you don't have to not connect to yourself, so to speak, to your own selfishness, then you can have love. And this is a tremendously, that's called serving God. That's called serving God. Serving God means that you change your natural egotism and you transform it to love and fear of God. Instead of being love and fear for yourself, you have love and fear for God. And Mikan, from here, Ikari Tchilas, this is the beginning of moving from below. I'm sorry. Umikan Ikar Hatchala Milamayla Lamata, from above to below. That's what it says, that everything you have comes from this, what's called land, upper land. From that grows love and fear. That's what it means, Artsecha. This is a tremendously difficult service, that your brain, your mind, your physical mind will be able to receive and grasp Gilui Elokusa, the revelation, the feeling of godliness. Huh? To feel that Hashem is really everywhere. God is creating us. God cares about us. God is, we say in our prayers, He's a king. He helps us and He protects us, and He and He saves us. Melech Ozer Moshiach Mogain, that God provides for the whole world. Zan Farnes L'Kol, Meitiv L'Kol, that God benefits every one of His creations. That's God. That's the masculine, you want to call it, aspect of God, and we have to receive it and appreciate it. This is a very difficult thing to do. It depends on our free will that we choose, because naturally people do not have a love of God. People have a natural love of themselves. You feel yourself. From this, from this, if you think deeply and you arouse your heart, you give birth. Give birth. From this upper land, we said, gets inspiration. The spiritual land from which all life grows, you get inspiration, love and fear. And this is called holada. This is called giving birth. Because love and fear, this is son and daughter. She'ava, that love, this is the level of a son. Like we said before, zachar chazdo. Zecher chazdo. Zachar means to remember, zachar also means masculine. And fear, this is the feminine aspect. Bezeu, male is going, like we said before, and feminine, that's the receiver. That's going backwards. The feminine has the receiver. She's the receiver, and the male, that's the love aspect, giving. That's what we say. That's why we always call God male, because He's giving all the time. Gives us life, gives us awareness, gives it. And this is ba techila. That's what it says. That is a saying in the Gemara that if a woman gives birth to a daughter, first is a simon yafel abanim. This is a good sign that there'll be sons afterwards. First of all, let's take this in service of God. What do we say? Fear of God. That's called the feminine aspect. You have to arouse the fear of God, pachto, techila, v'zeh shar la'Hashem. You have to have fear of God first, and then you can have love. Why? Let's say, for instance, take an example. Let's take our example again of driving a car. You want to learn how to drive a car. The first thing is, you drive a car, you have to realize that the car is a very powerful and dangerous thing. You have to learn how to steer properly. If not, you have to learn where the brakes are. If you don't know where the brakes are, you're in big trouble. Right? You have to know how to control the thing. The first thing is to have respect for the car. You have to have respect. You have to see it's a very valuable and precious thing, and you don't want to lose it. Your life can depend on how you turn that wheel and where you put your foot. It's your life. If you don't think so, then you're in trouble, and everybody else on the road is also in trouble from you. Fear. And afterwards, then you can have love, then you can have appreciation, you can use things properly, which is not the case, which is not the case if you don't serve God, first of all, from fear. You just want to have love and fear, that I am going to love and I'm going to fear. You won't succeed. You won't have any love or fear of God. You'll only have false ideas. False feelings. Okay, what's the Rebbe talking about here? Appreciation. What is appreciation? Appreciation of something. Anything, right? You appreciate it. Everything is very valuable to you. Everything is valuable. Then you have a true appreciation of the thing. The more appreciation you have, the more valuable it is to you. And conversely, the more valuable a thing is and you realize it, so the more appreciation you have. What happens when a thing is valuable? If it's really valuable to you, you like it. That's called love. You don't want to lose it. That's called fear. That's if everything is valuable to you. And if you value it. Love, here we're talking about it, up to now we've been talking about things that relate to my ego. Driving the car, right? Having a precious music. What is the music that you love? You have the money you find. It's a real $100 bill. Oh, it's valuable to you. You don't want to lose it. If it's false, it's not valuable to you. You don't care whether one way or the other. Throw in the garbage. Right? Okay, but now we're talking about something a little bit differently. We're talking about serving God. Serving God means that, believe it or not, there's a creator, and you're a creator, and you can feel the creator. When you feel your creator, it's a whole different world. Suddenly the world becomes less, what do you call it, the myopic. It's less, when you're a person who's an egotist, he has funnel vision. He doesn't really appreciate anything unless it benefits him directly. But if a person has a little bit of an appreciation of the miracle that he's being created, so then you can see other people also. It's not my money, so to speak. It's money that God gave me. It's not my eyes or my ears or my nose. This is a gift from God. And as a result, I use it for what God wants me to use it. But on the other hand, you think to yourself, wow, God is really giving me my eyes, he's giving me my ears, my nose. God must be really precious to think about not what God gives me, but what God is himself. What is God? Where does he get all this eyeballs and these ears and these, to give? How is he giving this life? Where is it coming from? When you start to think about this and you stop thinking about yourself, then you can get a tremendous level of love and appreciation of God. The problem is it's very difficult not to think about ourselves. Very difficult because you feel yourself. So you have to go against your feelings. You have to go against your what's called common sense in a way. Everybody feels themselves. Well, I'm going to be different. There used to be in the time of the first temple, especially a little bit in the second temple, there were prophets. There were whole schools of prophets. They would learn how to feel God. And then sometimes God would send them messages. And the messages are written down. That's what they have, in Isaiah and Yoel and Yonah, all these other prophets, Ezekiel. They received messages because they did not feel themselves. They did feel the Creator. Not everyone got these messages, the same, or at least messages for all time. But there were thousands, tens of thousands of prophets in that time. And they got minor messages, personal messages. But nevertheless, the whole point is not feeling yourself. That was the sin of the tree of knowledge. The sin of the tree of knowledge was that Adam and Chava, they exaggerated their feeling of themselves. That's called klippa. It covers over the good. According to Judaism, everyone basically, essentially is good. The world basically, essentially is good. Every human being is good, created in the image of God. And the sin of the tree of knowledge is just cover the good over. So we feel more and more selfish and we identify more and more with the selfishness. And that's how death came to the world. If we would truly not think about ourselves, that this would alleviate a lot of the death in the world. I mean, it's a known thing that death is caused by people, and you'll be worry and things like people get heart attacks and things like that because they think about themselves. They're worried about themselves. Okay, so we're talking about now loving God. So loving God means you give birth. Giving birth to this love. This giving birth has to come from what we call the upper land. It's not yours. You so to speak, think about God, and then God does the rest. Listen, God is doing everything. He's creating us. He's giving us eyes and ears. He also gives us love. And fear, it's a gift from God. It says, if you want to think about, if you think you're going to do it yourself, and you happen to be a very emotional person, and you happen to be a person that's a good actor, huh? Good actor. You ever see these movies? There's movies, I don't know if there is such, I haven't seen a movie in such a long time, but there's movies, there's actors, play actors, Shakespearean actors. They're great, they're fantastic actors. And the whole thing is a big fake, but they're great. I mean, you watch the play, you can cry, you weep. You see operas, right? The people, the whole crowd is crying and weeping. The Romeo kills Juliet, the who knows who kills what, kills Macbeth or somebody like that. Everyone is crying and this, and then the whole thing is a big fake. The actors are faking, and the story is made up. The story never happened, and the people that are doing the story, they're sure faking. They're just faking the fake, right? The whole thing is not real, but everybody's crying. But the fact is, it's false. The same thing is with love and fear of God. If you decide, hey, these ideas are really nice, I really want to love God. This is really great. I'm going to do it myself. So you happen to be a good actor, and you work on it. So it says, if you do that, and you think it's going to come from yourself, then it's not going to be love and fear, true love and fear. It's only going to be dimyono shava. It's just false images. It's not going to last. In the end, when the curtain goes down, whatever, when you stop praying, so that you're still your old self, right? You get mad at things, you get angry at them. Hello, what's the fisha? It's still only temporary. This is called mashakela. That's what's called mashakela. What did we say before? We have the blessing. There will not be a mashakela. A mashakela is a woman that gives birth to children, but they die. This is the same thing. We're talking about giving birth to love and fear. That's our children. Love and fear of God. And it's a very essential thing. Instead of loving and fearing for ourselves and being selfish, is we have love and fear for the Creator. And the Creator knows what's best for us. He wants us to be healthy and love, etc. But we have love and fear of the Creator. But if it comes from us, it's not true. Then it's called mashakela. It's a temporary love and it goes away. You'll let us that you give birth for koveris and we bury it. What's akara? Akara means she'enu yoledes ava b'yira kalal. This is a person that thinks about God, and he thinks about how God is creating me, and he thinks about how great God is, and it doesn't give birth to anything whatsoever. That's what it means. There shouldn't be any mashakela, akara, a mourning. A woman that mourns for her dead children, or a woman that is barren, has no children in your land. What does it mean in your land? That the reason that you don't have true love and fear is because it comes from your land. Artsecha. It comes from your land. It comes from your power of love and fear and imagination. It's from you, and it doesn't come from God's land, from the land from above. You're not letting God take over and be a gift. This is, by the way, is a big problem for all mankind. Is that we do not allow God to surprise us. We have to think we have to do everything ourselves. Everything we have to do ourselves. And we leave no place for God to help us. And I mean, God is creating us. He wants to help us. He wants to aid. But we don't let him. We feel we have to do everything. The success comes from me. My children are mine. My accomplishments are mine. I did it. Which, if you think just for 1 second, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. These people are they have multi-billionaires, right? You have, what is his name? Bill Gates, and these people have $100 billion. You want to tell me that Bill Gates is 100 times smarter or whatever than a person that has just $1 billion? And is 1,000 times smarter than someone who has only $1 million? He was lucky. He was lucky. He had a right idea at the right time, the right place, and it happened to work. And where did he get these ideas from? Right? The ideas came from him. He was a receptacle for these ideas, and he just happened to meet the right people that he knew how to use it, etc. That goes with everything. With famous actors, famous musicians, famous this or this. It's gifts. Right? They have a certain talent, a certain ability to receive these gifts, but nevertheless, they're gifts. But then they misuse them. Right? They think it all comes from me, it's all mine. And when the gifts go away, when the movie star has a little wrinkle in her face or something, that she goes crazy, right? And the people stop coming to this guy's movies, so he commits suicide. because they can't take it, because they think everything comes from themselves. But it's not. It really comes from God. But the same thing is also with love and fear. When you realize how important it is to have love and fear of God and appreciate God, so that's not the end. It could be that you have love and fear of God, but it all comes from you. Therefore, it goes away. Somebody calls you a bad name, you hear somebody's saying something bad about you, you go all berserk, you go all wild, etc. And you have lusts and you have anger and you have jealousy, all these things, because you're really loving yourself. Okay. Says the Rebbe, so that's now the point is not to make us feel bad. We're talking about to say bad things, but the person has love and fear and it's not true, it goes away. So that's the level of akara. There's another type of akara that's even worse. Vahu be'in, like the rabbis say, ein lo velad. It says by Sarah that she didn't have any children. Afilu beit velad. She didn't even have a uterus. Ein lo, she hasn't got harisha tum tamim. A person that is tum tamim. What tum tamim means? That is closed up. A person's, now we're talking about giving birth to love and fear. A person's heart is so closed, she can't receive the seed to become pregnant. There's also this level of la'avos Hashem and serving God. A person cannot grasp in his mind ha'em is the truth, kasher hu as it is. He hasn't got any mind to think about God. There's a story, maybe it's a bit of a joke, but it's a story anyway. They say that once there was a man that went to pray in a synagogue. He went in a shul in somewhere, in Europe, and he saw there was one person, apparently a very simple Jew, and when he would say Shema Yisrael, he would just start to shake and tremble. His whole body would shake and tremble, and sometimes he would even fall on the ground from awe and fear. So we went to him afterwards. He said, "Listen, I see when you say Shema Yisrael that you're really trembling. I really would like to know how how you get so genuine in your appreciation of God. And how do you do it?" So he said, "What do you think about? Some sort of Kabbalistic idea, some sort of an aspect of God, name of God." So he said, "Well, I'll tell you." He said, "The fact is that, in synagogue, I see that the rabbi, when he prays, he really, is very, very, how do you say, genuine and very intense in his prayers. I see these very intense." So I went and I asked him, he said, "Because I think about God until I have love of God and fear of God. And I mean, God is infinitely close to us. He's creating us and he creates the whole world. And, I just appreciate it. So how do you do that?" So he said, "Well, there's ideas, like the mimer that we're learning right now. You think about how great God is, how the angels are all crying out to God. You translate the words of the Siddur, of the prayer book, and you think about how the angels are crying out to God and what God is and how God is creating us and how God loves us and he took us out of Egypt." So I said, "Okay, good." So I thought about it. Didn't do anything, nothing whatsoever. So I went to him again and I said, maybe he can. So he explained some of these ideas in Chassidut a little more. He wrote it down, so that I would be able to think about it. And I did. I thought about it. I did absolutely nothing, I just, keeps popping into my mind, maybe somebody's knocking at my door on my business, and maybe, I left the water running in my house, and it just doesn't catch on. So the rabbi said, "Listen, did you ever see in your whole life anything that made you afraid?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I sure did. Once I went into the farm to feed the chickens, and there's a big turkey that attacked me. A turkey, and turkeys have a big wide wingspan, 6 feet, I don't know, bigger. And the turkey started, ran at me, and he was attacking me, going gobble, gobble, and his attacking me. I was so startled and afraid, I ran back into the house." So the rabbi said, "Okay, listen, every time you say Shema Yisrael, think about that turkey. and think God creates that turkey. God is more real than a turkey. And that's what I do. I think about a turkey, and that's why, I have this trembling. Okay, that's like called metumtum. What is it, metumtum? The person is stuffed up, akara, barren. It's impossible for this person to think about God and to get excited about God. You can think, but it doesn't do anything whatsoever, which I think that's 99% of the Jews. And even those Jews that do occasionally think about God, 99% of the time, that's everybody, right? I mean, maybe there's people that, the great people could be, listen, I'm not in that level, and this is a person who thinks about God, and maybe, once in a year, he really gets excited, but most of the time, not. Now, the Rebbe knows who he's talking to, and that's us. The Jewish people, they're called Kos Yeshuas. They're called the cup of salvation. They're the receiver. The Jewish people, they're God's bride. Shehu Kli Kibul, they are the receiver, Lekabel HaChasidim, God's kindness and God's upper love. And this is called Kos Shel Bracha. The Jewish people are also called a cup of blessing, that they receive the wine, Hamasameach, this wine that rejoices. Namely, the Jewish people, they have the ability to what's called hitbonenut, to think about God and make themselves into a vessel, keshu kli rikan, to empty ourselves out from egotism. That makes us ability to receive. Which is not the case if you're filled with yourself, which everybody is. Then he's filled with himself and he thinks that he is somebody. But if you think that you are something separate on your own, which that's like 100% of all mankind, of all Jews, maybe there's 1.0001 that really have empty of themselves. Therefore, a person does what he wants and says, this is what I want, this is what's good for me. So this I cannot do. Okay, a person always thinking, I want, I do. In English, it's even worse. It's a capital I. So what's the Rebbe saying over here? False egotism is bad. False egotism, that is the definition of bad. That's what Adam received when he ate from the tree. God said, don't eat, but I want to eat. I became a big capital I. And that's what happened to us, this covered over our feeling of truth. The Yeshvas of Pratim, there's all sorts of details, ad ein mispar, without any end. But in general, every person has this. What is it called? Our own egotism, our own feeling of ourselves, the own feeling of natural feeling of me. What's wrong with that? Says the Rebbe, absolutely nothing is wrong with that unless you feel what's right, unless you feel what's true. That's the thing about people, let's say, that are addicts, right? They're addicts. They can't see anybody else. A person is addicted to smoking cigarettes, right? He can't stop smoking cigarettes. He walks by thousands of people that don't smoke and they live life properly. Why can't he learn from them? Can't learn. A person that's an alcoholic, he's an alcoholic. There's billions of people that are not alcoholics. Why not learn from them? It's possible to live life without being, they can't live. He's so caught up in himself that he's trapped. He thinks there's no alternative. He's filled with himself. And that's everybody to a certain degree. Everyone can find this in his soul. Whether people that are businessmen, whether people that learn Torah, and everything, a person always says, I know better than everybody else. I have no place for somebody else. And because of this, nimtam, a person gets all stuffed up. What do you do? What's the solution? Ha'ed says, how do you make yourself into an empty vessel to receive godliness? By the way, this is the secret of a happy family life, of being a person. You have a place for being a good teacher, being good, that you're open. You love others. You love your wife. You love your children, not what they give to you, what you can give to them. Because you're empty, so suddenly you realize that there's new powers that flow through you. You can do things you didn't think you can do. And in fact, you can't do them. Once you empty yourself of your false ideas, I remember somebody, a long time ago, I saw this movie. What was it called? The Karate Kid or something, right? You see the movie? I must have seen it, I don't know, 40 years ago. Somebody said you have to see this movie. I don't think I saw more than just this one part of it, to tell you the truth. Maybe more. Anyway, so there's this kid who gets beat up in school, and he meets up this karate master who's going to teach him how to be a karate. So he says, so the karate master is trying to teach him, and of course he doesn't learn. So he says, okay, you want to learn to be a karate master and defend yourself in school? Yeah, I don't want to be a chicken-chested weakling. I remember used to have Charles Atlas used to have this. I don't want to be, the butt of everybody's this. So he says, okay, so here's a cup, and he has a cup full of water, and he has another cup full of water. He says, here's my cup, and here's your cup. He says, okay, now I'm going to pour my knowledge into yours. Both cups are filled. He starts to pour. He says, no, stop. And he takes his cup, right? The kid takes his cup and he pours it all out so that it's empty. He says, now pour your cup into my cup. And I'm going to be empty. I'm going to. Well, it's something in every aspect of life. It's this: if you're empty of your own egotism and your preconceived thoughts and your whatever it is, ideas, and your own selfishness, then you can receive from others. But if you're not empty, then there's no. How do you say? You see these woke people now. They're all angry. They're totally closed up. Right? They're all angry. They're going to give, and they're not receiving from anybody. They won't let people speak in their universities. They're totally filled with themselves, like the ultimate ego. Says the Rebbe, we Jews have to be the ultimate receivers. We have to receive, but you have to watch out who you receive from. But the idea is that once a person rids himself of his own anger and egotism and selfishness and aggressions and depressions and things like that, then you're empty. You say, okay, Hashem, what's the way to do it? You have to break your heart. What does it mean, break your heart? Eshkon et dakad. This is, God, I dwell with a person that casts himself down. Hu b'mashal uman, like a person that makes a vessel. That first of all, you have to hit the vessel around and around until you make it empty inside of it. And so also a person, the yidakev, yeshuach, if a person humbles himself, liot shafel ruach, to be humble, shalo yitfos makom kalal, and let God take care of everything, sheyeh makomo panoi, then you are empty, b'chalal, kilu ayin, b'efes mamash, like you're nothing. We're not talking about doing this all the time. Like we say, the example of this was Moses and King David. They were both big warriors. They were great leaders, but they didn't do anything from themselves. If a person really trusts in the Creator, then you get new power, new happiness. You let yourself be a receiver. You're not full of your own selfishness. That's it says, another thing is what the rabbis say, kos shel bracha, the cup of blessing, you have to wash it out on the inside. Who is like this, even a person that's very humble by his own nature. Let's take up an example, a person that's poor, and he has no, chutzpah at all. He's got nothing. But he also has to, you also have to incline your heart, even permissible things. Diot makusher ba'em, b'kol lev nefesh, even things that are permissible. When you have a ki efshar la'olam she's kayem asiyas davarim mutarim below lev, that it's possible for you to eat your meals and to make your money and put on clothes or whatever, and to do it without egotism. But if you attach yourself to the things of the world, you can never be a vessel to receive. Like I said, that the most simple job that used to be was to be a wagon driver. A wagon drivers, they didn't have to know streets. No, the taxi driver, you have to know where to go. Maybe not anymore. They have ways and things like that, but you have to know the streets. You have to know this. But then a wagon driver, all you have to do is just go straight on a road. Just go straight. That's all. It's the simplest job. The people who had the least aptitude and the least ability to do anything, they were wagon drivers. They could be wagon drivers. The simplest job. My teacher was one of my teachers, Rabbi Mendel Futterfest. He said, "You know what the wagon driver says? No one whips the horses like it. No one can crack the whip like me. I'm the best cracker, the most simple thing in the world. Nevertheless, he wants to be better than everybody else." Says the Rebbe, even a person that is very humble and a person that he doesn't have anything to be egotistical about, nevertheless, he can be too attached to the world. Too attached to the world. A lot of times they have these videos. You ever see they have these videos about people, they go up to some poor guy on the streets and say, "Hey, have you got a quarter?" The person says, yeah, here I have a quarter, give it to me. You would do the same thing for me, right? I don't know if this is staged or it's not staged, but the idea is sometimes a person that really gets down to the bottom, he really trusts in God. Everything that he gets, he appreciates anything he has, and he's willing to give that little bit that he has to others. There are people that are like that. There were people that the Rabbi, what's his name? Viktor Frankl, he writes that in the concentration camps, he was in the concentration camps, there were people that were willing to give their last piece of bread to others, to go around and to comfort others, even though they themselves, their whole family had been wiped out and their hearts were broken. But to help other people to may say a good thing, right? He's not filled with himself. Isha, also a woman, cannot receive pregnancy even if she has a womb. In Lonit Tahar, she has to purify herself from her impurity. She has to be in the proper time when there's no blood, when there's this. So what's he saying? The Rebbe is saying, our job now is to give birth. We're talking about giving birth to love and fear. God promises us that if we do what he says, that there won't be any women that will lose their children. And here we're talking about us, me and you. We're talking about we're the women, and our children are love and fear of God. And we won't lose them because it won't come from our land. It won't come from our own egotism. But rather we'll think about God on God's terms, and we'll be empty from our own selfishness. And by means of that, we can then we can really become active Jews like King David, like Moses. That's what Mashiach is going to do. Mashiach will clean the hearts out of each and every Jew, and from the Jews, the whole entire world, that we can actually feel the Creator. We can feel that good inside of us that's there that Adam covered over. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the Devar Malchut. Here we go.